Trailers. Trailers. A Million Ways to Die in the West is directed, written, produced, starred, everything by Seth MacFarlane, the creator of Family Guy and the director of Ted. I really liked Ted. I thought it was a funny film. I really enjoyed the camaraderie between a teddy bear and Mark Wahlberg, which is something I didn't think I'd ever say. Ever. This movie has a very similar structure to it, except it takes place in the Old West. It's not as much of a buddy tale, but it has the same sort of skit-to-skit feel. Seth MacFarlane plays a really good-hearted, kind guy, and he just wants to find someone who cares about him as much as he cares about them. And when he meets Charlize Theron, he has that opportunity, but he has to also try to win back his former love, played by Amanda Seyfried, who is now with Neil Patrick Harris, who has an incredible mustache, which is apparently what he is most known for in this movie. Now, as I hinted in my intro, the trailers really gave away a lot of the best parts of this movie. Some of the funniest jokes were unfortunately in the trailers, and just in case you have not seen the trailer, I won't spoil for you the incredible cameo that is in this movie that would have been so great if I hadn't have seen it on my phone while I was sitting on a chair in my room. Nowadays, it's like we see everything on our computer screens or our phone before we see the movie, and this film just gave away way too much in the trailers because some of the best jokes were unfortunately in those previews. And a lot of it, as I said, does feel like an elaborate string of Saturday Night Live skits where they surround a scene around a certain gag and it either works or it doesn't. And a lot of the jokes do miss because I walked into this movie hoping to laugh, but some of it does kind of come off as Seth MacFarlane's attempt to make himself look better because he gave himself the most sympathetic, loving, caring loser role that he could have possibly given himself, because I know he gets a lot of flack for being like a huge dick with his comedy, and when he did the Oscars he got so much hate for all of his misogynistic comments. I thought he did a good job at the Oscars. He's a funny guy. I've liked a lot of his stuff before. As I said, I liked Ted, and some of the Family Guy episodes when they first started were really great, but this movie didn't really make me laugh all that much, which is kind of the biggest crime you can commit in a comedy, because I go into a comedy, all I want to do is laugh and have it be clever with some sophomoric stuff mixed in there. And a lot of this just felt sophomoric. And just like I talked about in my review for The Other Woman, we have another movie in which a character is given a laxative and he has to poop a lot. How many times are comedies going to use that exact same old joke? It's not funny anymore. It just felt so incredibly confident with its material, which sometimes is a good thing. But when your material is kind of it's a bad thing. This movie definitely comes off as Seth MacFarlane's attempt to make his own Blazing Saddles, old Western satire type thing, except the satire elements of the film don't feel smart. They just feel like, hey, here's a current in-joke, or I'm going to say Mila Kunis's name, but make it sound like I'm speaking a different language, but I'm actually just going Mila Kunis. And I don't find that funny. It's just like, hey, by the way, Mila Kunis did a voice on that show that I created, and she was in Ted. I know her. I'm going to say her name in this movie. And the story with Liam Neeson hunting after Charlize Theron just felt very forced, because there are attempts in this movie to go for a more action and realistic sense, and it just copied straight out of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. This horse chase to a train, and then all of a sudden he just magically somehow teleports into a moving train with his horse, and I just was like, okay, I was supposed to take that scene seriously because they set up the action scene completely seriously. It's not a gag scene, and then all of a sudden he somehow got his horse into a moving train. And so when the film did attempt to be more serious like that, I couldn't buy into it either. Liam Neeson is enjoyable in this film as the main villain. Charlize Theron is a fun presence. I'm gonna give A Million Ways to Die in the West a C. I do think it has some funny moments. Most of them are unfortunately in the trailers. The film has some good intentions and a couple good cameos, but for the most part I didn't really find this movie very funny, and when you're watching a comedy, that's not cool. Guys, let me know what you thought of the film if you do see it or if you have seen it. I'm interested in knowing what you thought, and as always, thank you so much for watching, and if you like this, you can click right here and get Stuckmanized.